trying to go left. All right, let's fucking go with 5 guys and a MF six-pack. We're going here on a Tuesday night talking everything NFL. I'm your host tonight from Cerberus Sports Talk, a.k.a. Randon Commando, Randon McMahon, and we're having a lot of good guests tonight. As always, we have Aruna and Ryan from No Borders Sports, Chewy from Chewy and Alejandra, and my guess, hey, I just met him at a hockey game the other night, and he talked some good football. Some Jonathan Stoker. Welcome into the chat. I backed up far away, so hopefully all that was audible for you guys. We're having fun here. Let's do it. We're talking some NFL. First topic going on is how are you guys doing?
I'm great.
Anybody?
I'm glad to see Jonathan here. Cheers, Jonathan.
Hey, it's nice to get some new blood on here, get some fresh takes, because I'm tired of hearing all of y'all. I'm getting bored of hearing the same old stuff all the time. We need some new blood in here. It's good to have you here, Jonathan, man.
We're definitely glad to be here as well, too. Definitely glad to be here as well, too. Born and raised in Dallas, Texas, a big Dallas Cowboy fan.
Oh, come on, man. Get out of here.
I don't know how I feel with all you 49ers guys in here. I try to hold up a little better than we did a couple months ago, but same result, right?
No, Jonathan was holding it down. We were at a LA Kings Star game, talking some football, talking some hockey. I thought I'd bring him on, give some fresh takes here. Before we get started, this is 5 guys in a 6-pack, so let's get the beer shout out. What are you guys drinking? Let's start with Jonathan. If you're drinking anything,
actually not drinking. I'm trying to keep it with water right now, but
he's working on his own 6-pack. That's what's going on. Exactly. Chewy, what do you got going on?
Today we're going to be drinking some Modelo. You got to love it. Throw a little bit of lime, throw a little bit of salt on there. Make it just go down smooth and right. Going forward next week, we're going to be doing some local beers, but today we're staying with the classic Modelo.
What about you, Ryan?
I got me some Session. This is from the creator of Full Sail. He had some guys working on his house. They said they wanted some light beer. You know, when he offered them beer, he says, I don't do any of that. And they said, because he said they wanted Budweiser. So he said, let me figure out how to make Budweiser, but good. And so you got, I think it's 5.1% APY. They come in little bottles. If you get the bottles now, the caps have rock, paper, scissors on the bottom. So when you're drinking with buddies, it's great to pop over the top and figure out who won the game. It's wonderful. Check it out, Session.
And Runa, what do you got going on?
Just my usual Michelob.
Yeah, you're watching the figure too. I like it. I'm doing a Friday IPA. You can't really see that. It's glaring. But they're a local brewery here in Fort Worth, Friday IPA from Martin House. They do a lot of freaky stuff like hot Cheetos beer and all this kind of stuff like that, but they have a good basic menu, and then they kind of go experimental. So let's start in with it, man, and let's go with Aaron Rodgers staying with the Packers. Obviously, big day here in football. Man, to be honest with you listening, we had the topics ready, and then we had to add like 4 or 5 topics because of what's going on today. So let's start. Aaron Rodgers gets 4 years, $200 million, and then he went on Twitter saying, "Hey, that contract maybe not be correct, but I'm staying with the Packers." And then they franchise tag Davante Adams. So who knows what's going on with the Packers otherwise than Rodgers and Adams are staying? How does that benefit them? What does that do for the Packers franchise? Let's start with Jonathan. Let's start with our guests. Let's get you going.
Obviously, it's a good thing anytime you can get the back-to-back MVP to stay in town. The twilight of his career is very reminiscent of Brett Favre. You know, every offseason it hits that I may retire, I may not retire, I may want to go play in Denver, I may want to go play here or there. But I'm glad they got him back in there. And he's obviously still at the top of his game. Probably has another, 4 years in him, if Brady's any example, if he takes care of his body. So can't be mad at it. As a Cowboys fan, I was hoping he would leave the division, but he's still here. So I mean, just that, as long as you keep that in house, and Devontae Adams is more likely going to stay now that he's been franchised, so they should be able to just push and roll through. And you feel bad for Jordan Love. This poor kid. Is he ever going to touch the field? There's just no real telling.
True. What do you think about that, man?
Yeah, you know what? This is a great day in 49er land. You know, I'm a 49er fan, diehard. This is a great day in 49er land. One, especially the Aaron Rodgers news. I cannot stand this guy, man. I cannot stand Aaron Rodgers, the most arrogant, just diva player in the NFL. I cannot stand this guy. Good riddance. I'm so glad that he's staying in Green Bay. That's exactly where he should stay. I mean, they can't win with this dude. They win it during the season, but they're a soft football team. He always crumbles in the playoffs. They can have him. I'm glad that he's going to bankrupt the team going forward. $50 million a season. I know that that's disputed, the contract, but what does he want more? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that Aaron Rodgers is mad that contract number got out because he wants $55 million instead of $50 million. That's just what kind of guy he is. I can't stand him. Good riddance. Hopefully he ends his career in Green Bay, and they don't win a championship for the rest of his time there because that's what he deserves. Forget Aaron Rodgers. And
There's too much salt on his rim there with the Modelo. Ryan, what do you think about what Chewy's saying there? Is good riddance or what?
So I like that they're there. I actually wish that Chewy's the point he was making about how much money he wanted. I wish that was actually true because it would stifle the team a little bit more. But the reason why Rodgers came out and had to clarify that it wasn't 4 years, $200 million is that the fact that the reason why he wanted to restructure the contract and keep things was to make sure that there was more money for weapons so he could go back and win. You know what I mean? Aaron Rodgers, he's an enigma as a person. Sometimes I'm like, hey, you're kind of cool. Other times I'm like, God. You know what I'm saying? So he's a little bit of an enigma. This is good for the Packers. It's all going to be in details once they finally surface whether this is actually like a team-friendly deal or if Rodgers is getting his bag and, his last straw.
Bruin, do you agree with you?
So took the best decision to stay in the NFC because NFC is wide open. Then you played with Matt LaFleur in that system. You are familiar with the guy, Devontae Adams. He's your number one go-to guy. So you have the opportunity. Yes, he had some bad moments, especially in the playoffs, choke moments, whatnot. But still, he's a great quarterback. So who knows? He has 3 years to try to get that next ring. So he took the best decision, the most sensible decision, I would say.
Chewy.
Yeah, so
you were on a roll, and I kind of like let it go, but let's get you back on a roll. Let's get you on some.
Waruna is like the nicest guy, even when he's saying something completely bad about somebody. Because I think his comments about it were worse than my comments, but he just said it in such a nice way that it came off nicer than what I had to say. But he did not take a team-friendly deal. So I've heard the rumor, I read the report that yes, this upcoming season the cap hit is going to be a little bit lower, maybe like $2.5 million lower for the Green Bay Packers than what he would have been on his previous deal. But next year and the year after, once all that bonus money gets paid out to him, that cap number is going to balloon up, and he's going to be getting $35 million versus the cap, 30 to 35 million versus the cap going forward after this season. So this is really a 1-year deal. See if he can go and win a Super Bowl, and if he can't, they're stuck with him. I mean, I don't think he's going to retire. To me, he's just too selfish of a player. He's not going to retire, and he is really just going to, the last couple seasons of his career, he's going to bleed the Packers dry. And honestly, if I was them, I would have cut bait and moved on. But hey, they wanted to keep him around, so I hope they have fun with that.
Yeah, so I got 2 hot takes with this. One, Camper report. If Trey blows up, he'll get $50 million a year. I think if Trey blows up, he's going to get $65 million a year come a couple years from now. 2, if you play fantasy football,
do you think there's going to be $15 million in inflation in 5 years? Or
yes, with all the TV money, yes, I will. And 2, if you're playing fantasy football, the Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams stack. I think Devontae Adams gets 20 touchdowns receiving next year because he's trying to get that contract. He got franchise tag. He's going to try to get a real contract. Aaron Rodgers is going to try to prove a point. I think it's going to be great. Let's move on to the next one. Hey, Aaron Rodgers off the table. Hey, Washington Commanders. No. Denver. No. Whatever. Oh, wait. Russell Wilson going to Denver for a keg or more than a keg, a double keg, a party, a whole brewery. In fact, just outlandish thing. Denver sends number 9 and 40 overall, 2 second-round picks. You got Noah Fant. You got a defensive lineman. You got some cheerleaders getting sent over. You got half the ownership to Seattle sent over to Denver. Like, they sent whatever they possibly could to Seattle for Russell Wilson. I digress. What do you guys think about this trade? Let's start from Maruna this time. Let's go counterclockwise on our board here. Muted. You're muted.
Still muted. Oh, Aruna, you're fired.
All right, Ryan,
Yes.
what do you... Oh, there we go.
I got it. Okay, sorry. Technical glitch. First thing that came to my mind, Chicago fucking Bears. Last year, reportedly, they were ready to offer 3 first-round picks, Khalil Mack, and some other players. But Seahawks said no. If I am the Chicago Bears GM, I would call either Pete Carroll or someone, ask him, dude, what the fuck? Fuck you. That's what they did. Right?
Well, they also reported that they offered the first overall for the Browns, and the Browns said no for Russell Wilson, and they took Baker Mayfield. So there's lots of not good moves here going on in this series of Russell Wilson trades.
Yes.
Anyways, go ahead, Maruna.
Yes, so that's the first thing came to my mind. Okay, Bears were unlucky, but let's see how their quarterback goes, Justin Fields. But other than that, we talked about this last week. I said it's not going to happen. Russell Wilson news is just the news, just a content creation. But suddenly out of nowhere, this happened. 2 things. Now, as a 49er fan, what I thought about is, first, NFC West. What's going to happen to the power balance? Because NFC West, most probably the best division in the football. Because there was Wilson, then Rams, 49ers, Cardinals. But now, with the Wilson leaving to AFC West, that division will probably going to be the best division in football because you already have Mahomes, Derek Carr, and Justin Herbert, the up and coming start. So now that division is going to be a real one. And there would be very interesting matchups this year because the NFC West supposed to play AFC West. And imagine the Denver Broncos playing Seahawks probably at Seattle. That would be a big matchup. So that's the other thing. In terms of this quarterback situation, the only other thing is what will happen to Jimmy Garoppolo's trade value? Because given... I mean, that's real, right? Think about this. Now, I think any AFC team is off the table. The reason is Russell Wilson already in AFC. Now, for any AFC team that wants a quarterback, name any team, Steelers, Texans, why do they want to go for Jimmy? No point. Because you already have another quarterback, Hall of Fame level quarterback coming into your division. That gives
Russell
a
Wilson
chance.
isn't a Hall of Fame quarterback, not yet.
He will be. At the end of
go
his
ahead.
career, I think he will be a Hall of Famer.
The
Let's argue.
Seahawks have to have one.
So anyway, my argument is there will be some NFC teams looking special. I think Giants might not be because they want to pursue with Mitch Trubisky to. battle for the starting quarterback with Daniel Jones, but other teams like Washington, maybe even Panthers, if they have a chance, if they think that, okay, NFC is weak, we can do it with Garoppolo, get into the playoffs, take some time, take a couple of years and move on to another quarterback. So that is our chance. So I think there are a lot of variables in play, especially it impacted not Seahawks, not just Broncos, so many teams in the NFC West as well as, overall through the NFL.
So, Jonathan, what do you got to say about that?
I'm kind of like you. I think of everything almost in fantasy football terms. So when I heard Russell Wilson getting to Denver, I got excited for Courtland Sutton, who's a good comparison to DK Metcalf as far as that big body 50-50 catch receiver. You look at KJ Hamler, he compares body size as far as speed attributes to TJ Lockett, almost the same. And then you look at Jerry Jeudy, he has a similar route running ability to Angry Doug Baldwin. So you got that same core of receivers that Russell has shown success with in the past. I'm not the biggest Russell Wilson guy. You can ask anybody that knows me, but I am excited to see what he can do over the first half of the season, at least with Denver, because we always know he breaks down over that second half. But
Shade.
It will be fun to see him in that offense. It just, I don't know if he has that ability to kind of work within a structure that maybe the offensive coordinator wants. I know they got the coordinator from Green Bay, if I'm correct, to come over, and we've never seen Russell just work an offense that just seamlessly, dink and dunk down the field. He's more of a everything breaks down. I'm going left, I'm going right. Let me throw it deep to DK Metcalf. Let's see if that works in Denver. If they have the good running back, they have Albert O at tight end. So they have all the weapons and pieces in place. A really good defense. And their main concern is going to be him not creating turnovers and giving the game away, which he has done in Seattle in the past over the second half of the season. So let's see if he can do that. But I'm like you. I'm excited about the fantasy football ramifications in Denver for those weapons. Jerry Jeudy deserved it.
So Chewy, do you think that the fantasy football, who would you be your number one receiver? Would it be Jerry Jeudy or Courtland Sutton? And two, what do you think about this trade?
So to answer the first question, fantasy football question, Courtland Sutton is going to ball out with him as quarterback. I mean, he is such a talented player. He's got that speed, size, he's got the strong hands, the catch radius. I think he's going to explode this season. I think DK Metcalf is a good comparison to him, but in my opinion, Courtland Sutton's a better route runner than DK Metcalf, so he's also going to do work over the middle of the field, not just down the field like Metcalf does. I know Lockett in the Seahawks offense was more of the route runner. He was more of the sure-handed guy. I think Sutton can actually play that role as well as stretching the field in Denver. So I think he's in for a big season, fantasy football-wise. I'm going to say, a lot of people are dogging Denver in this trade, and I don't really get it why. I mean, they're getting, in my opinion, probably a top 3-4 quarterback in the NFL. Those don't come around very often. Say what you will about Russell Wilson. He's been a thorn in the 49ers side for his entire career. We're talking about a 9-time Pro Bowler. This guy should have at least 1 or 2 MVPs to his name. For some reason, he's been robbed his whole career, has never won an MVP. But he should have at least 1 or 2 MVPs in his career. He's just an unbelievable competitor, unbelievable quarterback. In my opinion, he was the best available quarterback this offseason, even though he kind of wasn't really available. He was still the best guy that you could get out there. So to me, kudos to the Broncos, going out, making a move, getting it done. They need it in that division because you guys mentioned it. That division is full of quarterbacks. I mean, you got Patrick Mahomes, you got Justin Herbert. Russell Wilson probably is right up there with Patrick Mahomes as the best quarterback in that division now. Derek Carr ain't no slouch. I mean, he's a decent quarterback. He's not.
I would say Herbert's better than Wilson.
Now, we're gonna see. We're gonna see when they play this season.
Jonathan said yes.
Wilson is so underrated. It's not even close. Justin Herbert doesn't win.
I'll bet anybody in this panel $50 that Herbert has better stats this year than Wilson.
Nah, no way, man. Especially with those weapons that Wilson has.
Rooney, you taking that bet?
Wait,
yes, I'm taking that.
Did Herbert just finish his second year in the league without a Super Bowl win?
That is a bad take, Brandon.
That's a horrible take.
That's a horrible take. Russell Wilson is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. He's going to show it next season.
That's the second time you said that. You really believe that too?
I do believe it. I mean, we had to play this guy twice a season ever since he came in the NFL. I know how good of a player he is. He's completely dominated the 49ers in his career.
So would you smash the MVP on? So obviously the odds are changing, but for Russell Wilson for MVP, would you smash that right now?
Yeah, I'm going to say if he gets this team into the playoffs, it's going to be because of Russell Wilson. He's going to have monster stats. I think this year he actually gets that MVP award that's eluded him through his career. So to me, I think it was a good trade. Seattle, it's going to give them some things to work on in the future. It's going to give them that ammo. We've heard about possibly packaging some of that stuff for Deshaun Watson. I hope that doesn't happen.
You stole my thing for the next. Yeah.
So that's
You're on it, Chewy.
That's definitely a maybe. If not, they're in position to maybe get Malik Willis in the draft this year with that number 9 overall pick. So you never know. I mean, I think both teams kind of won here. But to me, when you get a quarterback that's that great and he's still in his prime, he's only 32 years old. I mean, it's a win for the Denver Broncos.
Ryan, finish this topic out, please.
So, first thing, I want to, Jonathan, Russell Wilson has ran an offense that actually has direction and purpose and a scheme. It was in his first 2 years. After that, everything you said was completely right. And I think being in the Broncos and actually maybe, having some sort of an offensive line, he could be deadly. I think this. If I'm Seattle at this point, why do I spend a big, huge bag on DK Metcalf right now when I don't have a quarterback essentially of the future? I almost would try and get some picks for him, turn around, go deep on my offensive. If I was the Seahawks, go offensive line in the draft. It's deep there. You could get a really good offensive line and in young. You shore up your defense. You keep some capital around for next year to make sure you got a high pick when the draft is rich with young rookie quarterbacks. You flip your team. In 2000, was he drafted in 2012 or 11? 11, I think it was, because they won in 12. So in 2011, they moved down in the draft and they picked up a whole bunch of people in later rounds that would end up being called the Legion of Boom and would be paid millions and millions of dollars. So, yes, I think we have a chance this next year, but at the same time, if they do things right like they did the last time, this might be a last hurrah again if they build the team that they built 9 years ago.
All right. Well, let's get this from Boomer T. All Niners fans should be pumped. Trey is big, fast, has a big arm. He looks like he has developed more touch in his short passes. Look out NFC. Obviously, this is a big deal for the NFC West with Russell Wilson leaving. Who knows what Seattle has done making moves. But let's go on to Washington on the phone here. Oops, there we go. Washington, so reporter, everybody, including Kansas City Chiefs. Hey, it's right? So they're walking your heels, desperate for the Washington Commanders about the quarterback position. So let's give up all the news we have now. What do you think is the best route for Washington? Let's keep it short because nobody cares about the Commanders. Wink, wink.
Trubinsky.
Chewy. Oh, well, let's go. Ryan. Okay, fine. Ryan.
Trubinsky. Chewy.
Nobody that they trade for, no veteran, go draft a quarterback, live with what it takes to get him where it goes. I know you have a strong defense, but nobody left available is worth going to get right now at this point. They should just get the best rookie quarterback they can, and shore up the defense even more, and try to carry your quarterback to a championship because that's really the only hope you have based on the options you have left.
Ruin it?
Gardner Minshew.
ruinous pick. What do you think about a ruinous pick? And then who would you pick?
I'm actually a big Gardner Minshew fan. I kind of like the way he plays that old gunslinger. Then we missed that gunslinger play, so he might be a good pick there. As a Dallas fan, I've been watching Washington. They have one of the best front sevens in the league. Antonio Gibson, their running back, is one of the best young running backs in the league. You got Sarah out there. Glad it didn't go through, but maybe even Mariota. He looked decent when he got in for Oakland a couple years ago. I mean, it's worth making those calls and seeing what's
going on. I think Garoppolo is an interesting topic now. He's the big boy on the table. Rodgers and Wilson are now off. If Washington wants to make the playoffs, they go with Garoppolo. They extend him 1 more year. In fact, they go that way. And was slinging that rock, so maybe you take that chance on him for $10 million and draft a quarterback next year. There's a lot of options for Washington. I just think they're so desperate. I mean, if you're asking for Mahomes, who's going to be making $50+ million in a couple of years for a 10-year contract, then you want anybody. So
you called Allen too. About Allen, you called about everybody, and like
Canadian football. Washington was calling about anybody who would ever answer.
If you're going to call a waste of time calling on Mahomes, I mean, like that is, and you're trying to have that contract. Holy moly, you are desperate.
All right, desperate. Speaking of desperate, we got Calvin getting a beer to go, and the fact that he bet $1,500 to lose $11+ million. Let's talk about dummy of the week. No offense to him, but at least dude, place the bet onto your brother's profile. What are you thinking, Chewy?
I don't really get the NFL when it comes to this kind of things. He's suspended indefinitely. It looks like he's going to be out for the entire season, probably. What are we even talking about? He didn't bet on his team to lose. He was doing some parlay bets. One of the parlays was that the Falcons were going to win. I know the dangers of gambling on games, and when point shaving and all of that starts to become a thing, that it can cause an issue. But you just need to suspend the guy 4 games, let it be known that it's not something that's going to be accepted, and you're not going to do it, and then move on. I mean, because we have people who are way worse. They're cheating. They're using performance-enhancing drugs. They're getting a performance advantage on everybody else. We have some people who are going to jail, who are committing violent crimes, who are getting less penalties than what he's going to get. In my opinion, this is just silly. They just need to call it a 4-game suspension, fine him those 4 checks, teach him a lesson, and then move on. Because this to me is it's such a minor thing that the crime doesn't fit the punishment here, in my opinion. And it's kind of showing the NFL to be sort of hypocritical. Punishments.
What do you think, Ruin?
NFL is just a fucking laughing organization. Think about this. What if this happened to Aaron Rodgers? What if he bet on something? Would the punishment the same? No, it would be never be the same. And this is the season that we learned. Some of the head coaches came out publicly and said the owners were willing to pay $100,000 per game just to tank it, to get a better draft pick. What did NFL do? Nothing. I didn't hear anything yet. So every day we are seeing these things. Even this season, Aaron just basically publicly lied about his COVID situation and everything, breaking protocols, whatnot. But what did he get? Just a 1-game suspension. That's it. So I think there is no point of talking about it in a sense, because this is way too ridiculous. This is unfair. I hope somebody makes some sense and reverse this decision.
What do you think, Jonathan?
I think the NFL was trying to send a message. Basically, betting is becoming a bigger part of the game. It's becoming a big portion of the revenue for the NFL. And you have the announcers talking about it during the game, not talking about betting lines. So they were doing this to send a message. Hey, this is a no-no. It can get really dangerous in the future if someone was actively playing and betting on games. Like, I get your point with Ridley because he wasn't playing, but just to send a message right now that, hey, this is a no-no. You're going to be out for a year. Kind of the rules are the rules, and we've known this for years. Pete Rose comes up almost every year. How are you this dumb that you're still doing this when you have an example of a guy that won't even get in the Hall of Fame because of this, and you're already missing a year for mental health? So I hated that it had to happen to him, especially when he's already having struggles with mental health. But the NFL was just sending a message. I don't have a problem with it. And to compare it to other crimes or to other suspensions is, I don't know, it's a little different because it doesn't affect the overall integrity of the game from a sense when it comes to betting as far as these other things that were mentioned.
So can I have a quick follow-up here to Jonathan? I want to get his thoughts on this because Waruna brought up like the elephant in the room, right? I mean, he brought up Aaron Rodgers. He brought up, white players they're just getting a slap on the hand and they're getting let off easy, what it sounds like. I want to get your thoughts, Jonathan, from that angle, because now we have an African-American player. He's getting made an example of. We have the Deshaun Watson situation going down in Houston where he has the civil suits. I don't think he's been formally charged with the crime. He was basically suspended all last season, right? He didn't play. He didn't dress. They're not really saying anything about it. It's not an official suspension, but it is a suspension. A lot of these NFL owners own stakes in the companies, the gambling companies that are, betting on NFL games and that are, handling these bets. But that's okay. And one player betting who happens to be African-American is getting suspended for like a full season.
Just to be fair, I think they would have done it to any player. I don't think the skin color played a huge factor into it if they caught any player like this. But you do make a good point. If it was a quarterback, I couldn't foresee it at all. Say Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, I definitely wouldn't see that. But once again, with the Deshaun Watson issue, I don't want to get too far off sidetrack. But from my understanding, he doesn't want to play for Houston anymore, and that is why he was not lining up at safety during practice all year, so that he was to be able to collect that payment. So I don't think a suspension, but I guess we'll figure out next year if someone else tries to sign him and see. But this is one with the betting. They were just trying to send a message. I don't agree or disagree with it, but they were trying to send a message that this is a no-no.
I think it's a big no-no. So baseball is one of my favorite sports. Pete Rose, not in the Hall of Fame, and he's not in the Hall of Fame because of betting. And so it's a big no-no. And no matter for race, you shouldn't bet on your own sport. There's plenty of other sports to bet upon and do all that kind of stuff like that. Where I agree with Haruna is the harsher penalties for beating your wife or doing this kind of stuff or domestic violence over what or betting on a sport. I just think there's so much leeway in what they're doing. They're just willy-nilly based on each individual aspect. And there's no real structure to the discipline within the NFL. And that's what makes it a laughingstock within the disciplinary actions that they're leaving out. If anybody disagrees with me, go ahead.
No, I think you definitely have a point. I don't think this is much of an issue. I think, like Chewy laid out, he betted in a parlay. First thing, he's not playing. He betted on a parlay where his team was chosen to win. Okay. You can want your team to win all day long. You can have insight about how good your team is. That don't mean shit when it comes to Sunday. You know what I mean? So to me, there's no if you're betting to lose and all of a sudden, somebody on your team is dropping key passes, this and that might be something to talk about, that you were betting on something like that. But it's totally opposite here. Yeah. Like you're not going to be able to get the other team to take a fall so you can, win $1,500 on a bet. You know what I mean? It's not a thing. I understand that they want to make an example. I understand that, but I think you're going to make an example a different way. So I spanked my daughter.
Which would be what way?
Well, so like, listen to this. So I spanked my daughter one time when she was real young, right? And then all I have to do is lay her across my lap, put my hand on her butt, and raise it up in the air and talk real loud. And she thinks she's going to get her butt spanked again. which I don't. I just put it back down on her butt again and start talking. And I get real loud and I raise it up again. She thinks she's about to get spanked. And then she says she's sorry and she goes on her way. Never got spanked, right? You can hold him in limbo for a very long time, and you can do a whole bunch of like, float ideas of suspensions. You can have him go through, certain kind of counselings and whatnot, make it a pain in the butt, but you don't necessarily have to take away his livelihood over a $1,500 bet.
One simple solution. You make him an ambassador for sports betting. Basically, you make him go there, talk in front of people. Okay, this is bad. We should not do that. I learned my lesson in a hard way. So that's simple enough. Rather than doing this, that's simple enough. It gets to deeper levels. He understands, okay, I would have lost money. A suspension would have been better than going to places and talking about the mistake I did, the stupid mistake I did over and over. So other sports do that. They make examples out of this by making sure that player always remembers what he did rather than by these harsh penalties.
Well, with Jonathan in the chat, we're going straight to a Cowboys question here because we had to get at least one. So let's set the table, Jonathan. Cooper released. Not only do you think this is a good idea with Gallup in the wings, or do you think they should have went running back and cut Zeke because of Pollard there? How do you feel about each individual move, or how do you feel about the move and did they make a mistake or not?
This is a tough one because you can see it both ways. I hate to ride the fence on it, but I'm a big fan of Cooper. I mean, since he joined the team in 2018 and he had a full offseason with Dak, his passing yards went up by 1,100 yards, and then his touchdowns went up by 8 touchdowns that very next season with Cooper. Cooper saved a lot of jobs in Dallas. He unlocked the part of Dak that a lot of fans in Dallas didn't think he had as far as that downfield accuracy. When Cooper joined the offense, that came wide open. He's one of the top 5, top 10 route runners in the NFL. He can get open for you. He's a big physical guy. I don't like the move of letting them go, especially if you're not going to get better at the position. I don't think you can get better at the position. Gallup was your number 3 for a reason. If you're going to pay him $13 million just so you can save $16 million on Cooper, it kind of leaves a sour taste in your mouth, especially when they use the money on the tight end and the number 3 receiver. And you're talking about letting the go your number 1 receiver, your number 1 defensive end to do so. So it's a lot of explaining that has to happen. But
so before you keep going, do you think Cooper is the number 1? Because a lot of people outside of the Cowboys organization, or maybe even inside, think CeeDee Lamb is better than Amari Cooper. Is that your opinion, or do you think that Cooper's the better wide receiver?
Definitely think Cooper is the better wide receiver. CeeDee is the flashy one. He's going to make the plays downfield. He's going to get up. He's going to dance for you. But if you watch the Hard Knocks before the season started, they even asked CeeDee, because he was getting so much love and so much attention as the number 1 receiver, they asked him who was the big dog in the room, and he said it's Cooper. Cooper is the big dog as far as the receivers. And there was an episode of Hard Knocks where he pulled him to the side and, hey, can you teach me how you do your route? How can you teach me how to do that release? So I think they recognize that he is that number 1. And like I said, when he joined the team in 2018, Dak went from passing for 3,300 yards to passing to 4,900 yards the next year, I believe. I'll have to look at it again. But he unlocked a portion of this offense that we hadn't seen since Romo, really. So it was nice having him here in town. But at the same time, you signed a deal that basically broke down into 5 one-year deals. And we can save $16 million by getting rid of a guy that sometimes got 4 or 3 targets. I mean, I don't hate the move as far as his usage. But the player himself, wherever he lands, say he lands in New England with his buddy, his Alabama quarterback, he could go crazy there. So I think the player is still really good, but the way we use him in Dallas isn't worth that $20 million.
Chewy, why don't you go next? What do you think about what Jonathan said about the usage, and maybe hint on where you think Cooper might be best used or best situated in the NFL?
Yeah, so I disagree with him as far as Amari Cooper being the number 1, weapon there in the Dallas Cowboy offense. I think obviously we all saw it last season. CeeDee Lamb surpassed him. He's a better athlete. He's more explosive at this point in their careers. Amari Cooper was at one point. What made him so special, especially when he started off his career over in Oakland, was he had that other gear, and he was a downfield threat. He's kind of lost the step. He doesn't have that kind of game-breaking speed anymore, and CeeDee Lamb still has it. CeeDee Lamb is a more physical player. He gets yards after catch. And in my opinion, CeeDee Lamb is a better route runner. I know there's the hard knocks that he's referring to where Amari Cooper is helping him, but that's just veteran mentorship, to a young player, teaching him how to get better at his craft. But in my opinion, it wasn't even close. CeeDee Lamb is the number one target on that team. He deservingly so. I mean, he's a stud player. He is definitely probably a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL already. So Amari Cooper just became expendable, in my opinion. And the $16 million that they're going to save on the cap, that's the reason that he's expendable. What the Cowboys really need to do, what they still haven't figured out after 10 seasons, 15 seasons, is they need to run the damn football. And maybe taking away one of those weapons for, that they like to go pass happy with will actually get them to focus back on running the football more, because that's honestly what they need to do if they really want to make a deep run and make some noise in the playoffs. Because the passing game, I mean, Dak is a great quarterback, but in my opinion, that type of offense is not going to get you to a Super Bowl victory. They need to give the ball to Pollard more. They need to give the ball to Elliott more. They need to utilize their run game and use that $16 million to shore up that offensive line to help improve in that area.
Jonathan, you want to? You as a Cowboys expert, I want you to respond to that. Obviously, I mean, you already stated that you think Cooper.
You might want to wait until after I say my piece so he can talk on both of us.
All right. Well, then Ryan, go ahead. We'll save Jonathan's rebuttal to the end. Then go ahead, Ryan.
So I'm getting rid of Zeke first. I'm planning on Amari Cooper later on, probably mid-season before the trade deadline. I'm looking to get maybe another piece, swap them straight across for another piece that I think I need. I'm getting rid of Zeke because Zeke's money is you never pay. Okay, so you don't draft a running back high and you never pay them on their second contract. Okay, you get rid of them a year before their contract's up, so somebody else can give you a draft pick for them. You can go find another young stud in the draft, and then they could pay them, and it could be their problem when they fall off and they can't produce anymore, which is where I feel that Zeke is. I don't think it's like totally 100% apparent that that's where he's at, but I think he's plateaued, and the edge is getting crumbly. You know what I mean? Amari Cooper, if you're thinking about trading Amari Cooper or cutting Amari Cooper, then you got more issues on your team than just, Amari Cooper. Because if you don't want to keep a man like that around on your team, you need to look at a lot of other things. You might want to trade your coach too while you're at it. But no, I think they should try to get some draft capital out of Amari Cooper because I think it was there. Get rid of Zeke, get Young at the running back position, have Pollard come in, trade Pollard before he gets too expensive, and keep with that dynamic. Pay your wide receivers. Jonathan, what do you think?
I think Renewal was going to go.
Oh, Robert?
Yeah. So I hate you, Ryan, because you basically stole my thunder. Because that's what I was going to say. Because I don't understand why you are keep paying for Zeke. Because I don't think I'm not saying he's not good, but I'm just saying it's like the Jimmy Garoppolo version of the running back to me. So you need to get rid of him. Now you did this with Cooper. I agree with releasing Cooper. That's great. Get rid of Zeke as well. Try to find a running back because 49ers are always successful finding these running backs. Find this running back that you can, cheap running back through the draft, maybe through a trade, because there are some other guys still available. Because Wayne Goldman, last year, he was in 49er practice squad. 49ers did let him go. So there are other guys that you can plug and play. So
and with their big offensive line, why do you need to be expensive at the running back position, when you got big guys up front who should be able to open up a hole anyways for anybody?
Okay, now 100% understand the value of a late round running back. We got Tony Pollard in the fourth, and he showed us last year that he probably should be a workhorse in this league. The issue with the Zeke contract, and I couldn't wait to say it, is basically if we cut him this year, it's a $30 million cap hit from what I just read. So his dead cap is $30 million. So Zeke
I'm
is
sorry, I didn't look into that.
2022. Now in 2023, he may not be. But you don't save any money from cutting Zeke, and you definitely don't restructure him. So he's going to – I mean, you pretty much made the bet, so you got to line it there. Cooper's contract is what made him cuttable, is because, like I say, it worked out to 5 one-year deals, and you basically cut him and you'd save $16 million on the cap. I know the cap went up $26 million from 185 to 208, and then we restructured Dak and Zach Martin and saved another $22 million. So we're going to have a ton of room to work in there. And I hate to see it happen to him. Like I said, I don't think you get better at position with Cooper. I still think he's one of the top 15, top 10 guys in the league. And to Chewy's point, you said CD was having a really good season. I don't know if you remember the very first game against Tampa where I believe he had 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was Cooper. He had 17 targets and 14 receptions. And then from there, he hurt his rib and he had 3 receptions, and it fell off from there until he caught COVID and he was out for 2 games. And when he returned, he had 1 blow-up game and it was never the same after that. So I think it is a situation where he wasn't fully healthy and fully in sync all year. But that first game, he showed you who he can be and who he still is in this league. And wherever he lands next, I think he'll show that as well too.
I think that's right. I think you're saying, you have a lot of things there. I think one, I believe Cooper is a top 5 wide receiver as far as route running. I think he's probably the best route runner in the league. He's just a tactician there. He's always been that way. Been injured and has really gotten shame. And he's still like, 27, 28 years old. Like he got in the league a lot younger than a lot of wide receivers in this league. So you have all that room. Let's move on here to a different topic. Let's go to Lamar. So Lamar Jackson has voiced his concern about getting an extension going into his 5th year. So they already picked up his 5th-year option. Does his down season worry you guys? Or do you believe he'll return to the MVP status that happened 2 years ago? How does this factor in? If you were the GM, how does this factor into his contract? Let's start with Chewy.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to Lamar Jackson, so this is a player here who had a down season due to some injuries. I mean, he only played 12 games this season. He still ran for 760 yards. He was down on the passing overall stats, but some of the things that you need to look at is his yards per attempt were a lot better. So from what I saw when he was playing is his yards per attempt this past season were 9.3 yards per attempt. So this is the highest of his career. His first season when he came in, he was at 8.7, 8.8, and then he went almost a whole half a yard yards per attempt increase. Also yards per completion, he went from 6.6 to 7.0 from last season to this past season. So in my opinion, he's starting to develop more as a passer. I mean, there was the one game, I think it was a Sunday night game, where he just went off in the second half. I think he had like 400 and something yards passing. You just saw like the development on full display. And
who was that again?
I think it was against the Steelers, if I remember correctly. I'm not 100% sure. But then the next week is when he got injured, and then that's when he was kind of in and out of the lineup. He was less effective. But in my opinion, he's been improving since he came into the league. This is the type of player that you do need to lock up. The Ravens really, I mean, if you don't have him, he's their whole offense. He's their run game. Obviously, he's their quarterback. He's the leader of that team now. He's been dynamic ever since college. He's never had a down season. When he came in as a rookie, he turned that team around, took them to the playoffs. In my opinion, he's a winner, and this is the kind of player that you want to keep and you want to reward. And if his passing would have never improved, then I would have had questions. I had those questions early on in his career, but last season showed us, even though the numbers overall were down because of the injuries, when you take a deeper dive into those numbers, you'll see that he's actually improving as a passer. He's starting to stretch the field more. And in my opinion, he's just going to keep getting better and better. He's still so young. I think he's like 25 years old, 24 years old. You got to work out a deal with him, keep him till he's at least, 27, 28, maybe sign him for a 4-year deal and then see how he is at that point and revisit whether or not he's worth a bigger payday at that point to see how much he's developed as a passer at that point.
So you're not saying Mahomes type deal, Chewy, like 10 years.
No. I mean, and I think honestly that was like a once in a lifetime thing. They've already restructured that contract 2 times. I think they restructured it this offseason again. I know they did last offseason. So they've already restructured that deal. I don't think you're going to see that. I think you're going to start to see now, because in the COVID era, salary cap teams are so salary cap. What's the word I'm thinking of? They're so worried about the salary
dependent.
cap.
Yeah, they're dependent,
right? So that you're going to see a lot more 3 and 4 year deals be the norm instead of those longer contracts going forward. Especially teams want to take advantage of the rookie wage scale, and that's really how you do it now. Is you draft a quarterback, keep him 4 or 5 years, get another quarterback, keep him 4 or 5 years, and just keep doing that. I think that's much more cost effective, and it's going to lead for greater long term success for teams.
Go ahead, Aruna. What do you think about that?
I mean, there are 2 quarterbacks in this league that I like, but at the same time that worries me. One guy is Kyler Murray, other one is Lamar Jackson. Not because they are talent, because of the injury concerns, because the style of play always brings me the concern that, okay, what if something happens? Because usually if you see a guy like, the regular, I'm not saying regular, but the quarterbacks that do not get much into physical contact, do not run that much, they protect themselves, they last longer for the season. But Cardinals are having that problem now, running into like 2 years in a row. They start well, but they end really bad. They finish the season without going nowhere because of the quarterback situation. So Lamar Jackson, for the first time, I think last year, that was the time he did significant amount of time. So that worries me. But at the same time, from the talent perspective, as Chewy said, from his improvement, yes, he's worth the contract. But I would probably try to negotiate, saying, okay, can you prove it to me the next year? Then I'm all on board to give you that huge contract. But let's play it out next year, because I just want to see, because me being the owner of the Ravens, I would say, because I have to make some business decisions. I understand your concern, but let's come to the middle ground. Please show me that you can stay healthy one season. I don't want the MVP level performance, but at least maybe top 5, top 10 performance from the regular season to the playoffs.
Do you agree with your cohort there, Ryan?
Sorry, I kind of tuned out a little bit, but so kind of what he said about their style of play. Lamar isn't as gifted with an arm, I believe, as a person like Kyler, so he's going to have to make more of his bread with his legs, and that puts him on a short-term, like short-term contract status for me. His numbers have gone down in rushing. Yes, the injuries and all that. To me, when I watch him, I think he's smarter than Kyler with things. Maybe he could see the field better, but still sometimes like he has bad plays where I'm like, what were you thinking? He's not scared to throw 3 picks, but he'll come back and win. You know what I mean? Like, he is not scared to do anything, but I don't think you pay a man like that. They're also their offensive style. They run him right up the gut. You know what I mean? Like, don't run him right up the gut. You run the running back up the gut and you loop him out to the flats. You know what I mean? That's where you go with it. Other than that, you're just asking for your quarterback to get mauled by defensive tackles all the time. Like, nobody should want their quarterback to be touched by a defensive tackle at all, much less tackled going through the middle. So I don't think it's a good thing. I wouldn't pay him. I feel bad because he's a good guy. He plays his ass off. He deserves it. But I mean, like, from a statistical standpoint, like, I don't think he's got much left in his career at such a high level. If that's
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just don't think he's got much more at a high level. So I wouldn't want to enter in a contract, because to tell the man, hey, here's a 2-year contract, here's a 3-year contract, it's a slap in the face. You know what I mean? He might not have so much, resolve and trying to win is hard for you. He might just be thinking on his way, saving himself for when he can get out the door and get a real contract. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you don't want to put yourself out there and be stuck on the line for a broken quarterback who, was on IR for one season out of his last 2 years, essentially. You know what I mean? Like half a season each year. And that's what I see with Lamar. It's going to, you're playing against some real men out there, and those hits aren't high school hits. Those are the hits some people don't get up from, and those are every play. So, yeah.
What do you think, Jonathan?
All right, I'm a big believer in Lamar. Me and Chewy are going to be dead on point on this one. Those injuries last year were a big part of his performance going down. Think about losing your left and right tackle from 2020 into 21. They sent Brown over to Kansas City. Stanley went down to the injury reserve.
Is that what happened to Aaron Rodgers?
And at that different gameplay, a different style of play too. So one relies more on the running game. One can move around and make
on the passing game with a non-mobile court. But go ahead.
I do not. I'm not calling Lamar Jackson Aaron Rodgers. I don't think anyone would. That would be a mistake. But he had a down year last year. I think they say 16 players at one point were on the injury reserve for Baltimore. So you had your defense, your offense was destroyed. You had 3 running backs go down, 3 running backs before the season even started. And your number one receiver must hate you, because he dropped 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. It seemed like if you had him in fantasy football, he was just dropping a touchdown every week. So I think, and especially in today's NFL and the quarterback market, what do you do outside of Lamar if you're Baltimore? He's carried your franchise for the last 3 years. As soon as he took over from Flacco, you went to the playoffs. You have a greater winner percentage with him under center because of his style of play. Even with half of your team on the injured reserve, he still almost got you to the playoffs. How many games did they lose by 2 points? He makes you a competitive because of his unique style of play, but it also makes him a risky contract, like you say. He doesn't have an agent. He represents himself. I believe him and his mother represent him. So maybe the team is able to talk him into a more team-friendly deal. But I think you got to pay for that unique talent. There's not another guy in the league right now like Lamar Jackson. So I think you got to pay him. But definitely I understand what you're saying as far as the style of play. You would hate to get a guy and then an ankle or a knee or something take him down for an entire year.
And to me personally, if you want to keep a guy with the talent of Lamar Jackson on your team for the longest time possible, and pay him his bag and all that, switch up your scheme. Make it more friendly for him to have a longer career. But right now, that's going. What he's
so I think, Ryan, to jump in on that, I think that's what the Ravens are doing, though. I mean, that's kind of what I mentioned in what I had said. When you look at his MVP season, I'm looking at the stats right now. His MVP season, he was throwing for 208 yards a game. This past season, that was a down season for him. He passed for 240 yards a game. So he threw for almost 32 yards more per game this past year than he did in his MVP season. Also, he's only 25 years old. So I just looked that up. He's 25 years old. He already has an MVP to his name. He has 3 playoff appearances. And you're going to, not reward a guy like that, 25 years old. I mean, that some rookies coming out of the draft, by the time they play their first season, they're 25 years old. He's already taken the team to the playoffs 3 times and has won an MVP, and he's that young of a player.
Yeah, I'm saying right now, 5 million or 5 years, 400 million. So, pay the guy, because the contract's going up. And he's going to be athletic enough to make that contract relevant.
5 years, 400 million.
What is it? Whatever what was the exact opposite of what Aaron Rodgers got? 5 years? No, he got 4 years, 200 million. Anyways,
so that's like 80 million a year.
40 million a year. 40 million a year. Sorry, my math is off. 40 million a year is what I would grant him. However you want to orchestrate.
I was like,
that,
your inflation is off, bro.
Yeah, however you want to orchestrate that is fine because he was an MVP. If you look at all of us besides Jonathan, our Niners fans, only 2 quarterbacks in the last 20 years drafted in the top 5 were MVPs, which is Matt Ryan and Cam Newton. And everybody's talking about Trey Lance. So the fact that he won MVP, like he deserves his money. He should get his money. And you should bet on him because if you cut him and draft somebody, there's no chance that there's a very small chance that you have a quarterback that's even close to his talent level. And so just pay him and bet on a guy that's already proven it by winning an MVP. Let's move on to
wait. I got it right here. Leonard Fournette.
We're talking about running backs. No, let's not.
No. You put him in.
This is already a garbage. This is already a garbage take, Ryan. And I don't even have to hear your argument. This is a garbage take.
You take your best wide receiver that was converted from a quarterback, and you put him into the backfield. And if you need to pass, then you hand it off to him, and then he passes, and you could have Leonard Fournette go out for the pass. It's look. I'll draw it up. We'll call it the annexation of Mount Vernon. That's where I'm staying.
You're getting muted in a second. Let's go on to Giants on the block. So Saquon and what is it? Bradbury were rumored to be on the trade block. So obviously Saquon is in his 5th-year option. I think he's making roughly $7 million. Bradbury is making over $20 million because the Giants pushed that contract back. Do you think there's a market for either guy? And where do you think they fall if they're getting traded? Let's start with Chewy on this one.
I think there is a market for the player that's not as talented. So I think Bradbury actually has a bigger market than Saquon Barkley at this moment. And I'm a big
$20 million a year.
I'm a big Saquon Barkley fan. So yeah, but they can restructure that. I mean, if you trade for him, you're trading for him because you want him, so you're going to extend him out long term, and you're going to restructure that. Not at $20 million a year, but Saquon Barkley is an injury waiting to happen at this point in his career. He's been consistently plagued by injuries. He was explosive his first season. Watching him last year in the little bit of time that he actually played, he looks like he's lost that explosiveness. He's not the same player he was coming out of college. Running backs already don't have that kind of lifespan and the shelf life that other NFL positions have. I just don't see a team really giving up big-time assets for Saquon Barkley. Even though out of the two, I think Saquon is the better player, running backs just aren't utilized today in the NFL as much. And you're not going to get a team like San Francisco, for instance, that can take any running back off the street. They're not going to pay a premium to go in and get Saquon Barkley. Why would they? I mean, he's injury prone. To me, it's just the Giants have to stick it out with him, in my opinion, because any value they get for him is going to be less than what he deserves, less than what they deserve for him. Like it's going to be a bad investment if you sell him off, in my opinion. He just doesn't have a market out there, and it's mainly because of the injuries.
So Runa, this is your last topic because you got to go, and you're a man of many means, so I understand. And we're gonna carry on without you begrudgingly, but give us your opinion here on the Giants situation.
I mean, I won't pay for Barkley because I won't trade for him as well if I were some coach in another team, because I think he's basically out of his prime, not worth it. And most probably Giants will not trade him as well because they will try to get whatever they can from him. But Bradbury, in the other hand, I think there will be a lot of interest because, especially given the situation, I don't think you will have many good, in the sense, top level cornerbacks in the free agent market. And there are some teams that are dire for cornerbacks, especially if you think about even 49ers, they need a top cornerback for next season. So given that they free Jimmy Garoppolo's contract, so there will be a lot of interest if Bradbury goes, and he will at least get paid, I would say 20 million in that range if he goes out. I mean, if he goes into the free agent market.
So you just think it's a hard toss either way.
Yes, it would be. Yes.
What do you think, Ryan?
So I don't like corners that could just play zone. Something to have to do with Richard Sherman, even though I really appreciate Richard Sherman and his enthusiasm, especially the first couple years in the league. That man that could do no wrong. But once everybody figured out and he started falling off a little bit, it was really hard for him to compete out there. So any corner who is already got his, is working on his first bag and is strictly a zone corner, I'm kind of hesitant on because once they start dropping off on speed, they're screwed. And I do think that Saquon Barkley is actually the steal here. I think you can talk him down to a lower pick. You might be able to get him for a fourth, maybe a third. Maybe you could do one of those. What do they call it? If he does good, we'll give you a better pick. It starts with a C. Anyway,
Compensatory.
Yes. You could do something like that. Then if you did want to pay the guy afterwards, because this also could be a thing if you're a team that is trying to make a run. Saquon Barkley needs to prove something. He needs to prove something to get that bag. I think any team that gets Saquon Barkley, they're not going to restructure him right off the bat. You know what I mean? Because they would be not to say that they would be foolish, because they could actually end up it could end up paying off really big for them. But it's just not smart. You know what I'm saying? It's not smart. I think that you could ride that situation to the Super Bowl. You have somebody like Saquon Barkley with all his talent. You trade a fourth, maybe have to give a third if you do something good with him. And then you turn around and he just runs lights out on the field while the rest of your offense dominates and your defense plays lights out. That could be a trip to the Super Bowl. And then at that point, you win the Super Bowl, right? You can't keep a lot of people around, so paying Saquon Barkley is going to be some of the least of your issues. So it could probably be a really good play if somebody were to go that route.
I think I'm gonna go a different route here, or I'm gonna disagree with a lot of people. I think I'm gonna go with Saquon Barkley here because $20 million is a lot, but Saquon is only making $7 million this year.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go with the Chiefs, and if I were the Chiefs, and I was trying to win right now, I would trade Saquon Barkley for Clyde Edwards-Helaire and whatever draft picks that make it work. Because you look at Saquon's making $7.2 million. Clyde is making $4 million or 2.9 in dead cap. So
you can't take them just on cap, can you?
Yes, you can. So for the Giants, they don't care. They're in the process of trying to go up. Chiefs are trying to win right now. So if you go Saquon and they're trying to win right now, he's a better running back than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The Giants get up and come. The Giants are getting the up and coming running back. Yeah, they have to pay the fifth year option eventually and all that kind of stuff like that. But the Chiefs are trying to win right now. Why not try to trade for that guy at the moment? The Giants get a running back who is under contract for a little longer. Obviously, you have to pay that fifth year option. But I think the Chiefs are trying to win at the moment because eventually, outside of the new Aaron Rodgers contract, Patrick Mahomes is making what, $50 million next year or 45 or whatever. Like their salary cap is going way up. What do you think, Jonathan?
So I'm with you guys as far as Saquon being the better pick of the two. Bradbury, everybody wants that long corner. Like you said, if he fits in a good zone cover 3 system for you, you could have an amazing player there. But with Kansas City, you think about Buffalo, think about New England. These teams that are one explosive player away, it seems like. So, if you get Saquon over to one of those and you give him a like you say, kind of a prove-it deal. Look at what Fournette did in Tampa the last 2 years. They put him on a prove-it deal because that was his last chance. He had been let go before. So then all of a sudden, playoff Lenny comes out and Tampa wins the championship. So you can get that from Saquon. And he is injury prone, like you said, Chewy. So you put him in a situation where he can share a backfield with Devin Singletary, share a backfield in New England, and then just to rely on him on those third down passes, for those explosive screens, for those leak out passes. And like you say, late in the season, when the playoffs come around, if you are that team that's in that position and you have a Saquon back there, you got to love your chances.
Why did you say the 49ers at all?
Let me jump back in on this really quick. So you guys make a great point as far as why a team would want Saquon Barkley, right? Because he's a good player. He's talented. But what you guys are missing the point on, and why it doesn't make sense, is the value that Saquon Barkley is going to bring the Giants. This was the number 2 overall pick in the draft we're talking about. We're not talking about some running back pick number 21, number 30. This was the number 2 overall pick in the draft. And the Giants are just going to give up on him for a 3rd-round pick, a 4th-round pick, and, go into the full rebuild mode. They're just not going to get the value back in return that Saquon really deserves and that they deserve as an organization.
Well, CH is a 1st-round pick. I was saying,
who is that?
Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a 1st-round pick.
Yeah, but he wasn't the 2nd overall pick. I think he was like a 13th or around there in that range.
Well, 30th.
Pick. 30th pick?
Brad,
oh, yeah.
Bradbury would also take the trade and then hold you hostage for the restructure.
This is just a value thing, in my opinion. It's not
all I was saying is Chewy. All I was saying is the running back, from my trade perspective, CEH was within the 1st round. Now we're trying to get around the bubbles here. Anyways, for us listening, for everybody watching on YouTube, there's the bubbles in the background. I'm trying to get around the bubbles here. But Chewy, all I was saying is that CH was a comparable value where they were drafted. Anyways, continue with your.
Yeah, so that's all I was going to say is everybody's focused on the team that's the receiving team of Saquon Barkley, which is great. But, this isn't just a one-sided thing. The Giants have to get something that they feel is fair in return. And I don't think that they're going to get that. They're not going to get anything close to what they really would realistically accept for Saquon Barkley. That's why, to me, it just makes it so unrealistic that this is going to happen. Saquon, I don't think is going to get traded. He's just much more valuable as a Giant than he is as a 4th-round pick to another team or a 3rd-round pick to another team.
Jonathan, you said
I kind of feel like the Giants have recognized that they've made some mistakes in those high-round picks, so they may be in a range to where they're just kind of taking what they can get, and they're never not in a real position to negotiate. It's almost like when we signed Zeke to that $90 million, we just realized we're going to have to cut him in 2023. We're not going to get much back for him for that number. And also, if we're talking about value and them wanting to get something back, when it comes to Daniel Jones, eventually, they got one more year on that experience. And if they were to try to get rid of him, they're not going to expect anything back either. So it's just kind of like you say, his value, the running back market set that for Saquon, but his own field play can blow that value out of the water. But over the last couple of years with the injuries, he just hasn't had the chance to show that. So it's in a kind of like a prove-it deal, and I hate that for him. I hate that for running backs in general. I almost wish if he had his son or something, you just convince him to go play defensive end or linebacker or something. Don't run him back, because those guys, it's the worst thing that I think since
I'm convincing my son to do long snapper. That's what I'm doing.
Long snapper.
Hunter,
millimeter football. There we go. Yeah.
So there's all the news about that dude who booted an 80-yard punt at the scouting combine. Now he's going to be an NFL player, right? So just parents at home, teach your kids how to kick, teach them early. That's the way to be safe and make some money.
I was saying that they need to change the contract structure. So running backs we came up with if you get so many carries, if you're the workhorse and this and that, your pay rate starts going up. You know what I mean? If they're using you and this and that, you start making money, because there's no reason why you should have to give up the best years of your career cheap and then turn around and poor Jonathan.
There we go.
Why keep moving everybody around?
We'll take me there. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to make it look good, man. I'm trying to make it look good.
Man,
it's your bubbles, man.
Who designed this thing? Gosh.
It's your bubbles.
Take the way of the overlay.
All right, let's see that.
I 100% agree with you on the running backs. And my idea, I like your idea as far as a usage-based pay. So if we think about a guy like DeMarco Murray in 2014 with Dallas, we ran him into the ground knowing that we weren't going to re-sign him the next year. And then he went out and got pretty good money from Philadelphia, but nowhere what he should have got from being the offensive player of the year. And kind of like what you're saying with the running backs, maybe a sliding pay scale as far as usage, my idea was make your running back room count less against the cap. Make it a certain percentage of the cap that goes to running backs. That way you can pay them like they deserve to be paid. That's the only position on the field that has to run headfirst into a 300-pound lineman almost on every play, a linebacker.
But at the same time, like, I don't want the team spending more for players that aren't performing to where they are. I want the players to get paid to how they perform when they're performing that way. I think it makes better sense for everybody all around. You know what I mean?
There's no way to slide that into a contract, in my opinion. Anyways,
I
go
had
ahead.
never really thought of
it's because we haven't tried.
What Jonathan just mentioned there actually makes a lot of sense. I haven't thought about it like that. Is you should really slot a maximum per position group that you can spend on a team of the cap, and that way you keep these quarterbacks from getting these, super massive contracts. You keep the running backs from being super underpaid. The offensive linemen, I mean, there's more of them, right? Or more defensive linemen, so they might get a smaller cut of the pie, but you should designate a salary cap per position group, and then maybe it'll make the contracts a little fairer across the league.
Well, that's a like organizational standpoint. Maybe what do you guys think about this? Is that if you were like a running back tribe, like just, hey, yeah, we'll take less money overall. Like, hey, I'm not going to be Chris McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook making all this kind of money, but I want all my money guaranteed because we're running headfirst into the defensive line. We're taking this beating. I'll take $8 million a year or $7 million a year. I'll take less, but it's 100% guaranteed. So if I tear my ACL, if I get a concussion, I do all this kind of stuff, it's all guaranteed. And it doesn't matter the max potential, because in most time in the NFL, your max potential never gets reached, right? For the Niners, Alex Mack signed a 3-year deal. All of it was pushed towards the end. And if he retires this year or next year, he's not getting all of that. So it really makes no difference. And so I think for the running back group, the fact that they are taking a beating and they're expendable, you had 40-something guys run for over 1,000 yards in college this year. Like it's really to the point that they should just take all guaranteed contracts for less money to win. Chewy, go ahead. You were
so you bring up another point. You guys are making some really good points that I hadn't even thought about. So in my opinion, what you should even do when you go to that and you guarantee contracts, that should be a bonus to the owner, right? And to the organization. Hey, I'm going to give this player a guaranteed contract. It should not carry dead cap money on the cap. They should actually do it in reverse. And if you don't guarantee money, then you should have heavier dead cap numbers because they're penalized more for getting rid of the players instead of actually paying the players and guaranteeing them the contracts. Those should carry 0 dead caps on the salary cap. This, flip-flop it. That way owners are more
responsible for the money that the players didn't.
Well, they're rewarded more for paying their guys and paying their players instead of playing these cap games that they do and moving money around and being afraid to give guaranteed contracts because they don't want to carry all this dead money on the cap.
Think about if you had like a running back by committee room. You guaranteed all your quarterbacks, right? Or running backs. And then maybe 1 week you don't need your third string running back and you might need another tight end or something like that, right? So that guy is not mad. He's sitting there watching the game, getting paid. You know what I mean? He's not tripping. He doesn't. The thing that's driving them to get out on the field isn't their paycheck. It's their thirst to be a champion. You know what I mean? So I think that's something that, and you can just decide not to pay people that don't have that thirst. You know what I mean? You can just decide to not bring them back the next year.
But I think it's different because you're looking at the 5th-year option for Nick Bosa for all the Snyder fans is roughly $19 million. The defensive end market is $30 million. The running back market isn't even close to that. So yeah, hold your heart. But
the franchise tag for a running back is like $9 million.
The Panthers are trying to trade Christian McCaffrey. right now because the cap and what he brings to that team isn't worth it. And I would never utter those words because I think he's the best running back in the NFL all around. He just can't stay healthy. But that's the situation we're in now, is that the running back market isn't worth the money anymore. And that's unfortunate for those guys who dedicate their lives to the sport to run headfirst into 340-pound people. So if I was a agent, I would say, hey, I'll take less money for more guaranteed money because I'm putting my body at risk. What do you think, Jonathan?
Oh, it's the same exact thing. Everybody's making really good points about it, like I said, with the running backs. And I put a lot of thought into it, watching firsthand what happened to DeMarco Murray, but then we turned around and did the exact opposite with Zeke and paid him $90 million. But everybody's making perfect sense. Whether it's percentage, whether it's a guaranteed, something has to be done for these running backs because it's just too much being put on. Look at Raheem Mostert. I mean, how many snaps did he even get a chance to take this year? And he was a 6th-round pick. So it's not fair to those guys to take on that great of a beating to you can just be so expendable and get rid of them. Like you said, these running backs that are coming out of college, I think 6 or 7 of them ran 4.3. So they're coming in to take jobs, and it's going to unfortunately take a job from a 26, 27-year-old veteran that now has to find something else to do at this point.
Yeah, so that's a good point. We're going to the combine. People running 4.3s in the combine. So this is a free-form question. Anybody wants to talk about whatever they want, whether it's players that are rising, players that are falling, or just the combine in general. Let's go with Ryan to start this one.
Is the combine even actually needed anymore? Is it just another way to sell football in a time where there's no football? I think everything that they do can be done at pro days. You can have somebody officiate everything, just like the Guinness Book of World Records person does, and you can log all the stats. You can have all that done. The wide receivers that were, deciding not to do the bench press because they felt that they would do better in a better atmosphere at their pro day, to be able to get more reps. I think that this is explaining a lot. Medical stuff like that. Maybe that's what the combine should be more about, getting medical stuff checked out and this and that. And then, the teams be able to meet behind closed doors. That's the other thing that I think the combine's more about, is teams being able to talk before, tampering period. You know what I mean? I don't know if this is actually good for the young athletes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really see it being.
Why do you say that? You're rambling. Why do you say it's not beneficiary towards draft picks?
Because they're taking away from their training just to learn how to sprint faster. They're doing all this type of things, but they're not capturing the essence of football. You know what I mean? There should be more things like maybe like the Senior Bowl, with actually things leading up to it that are the same thing as the combine. So a lot of other players, you can get all these type of things, these measurements, the all that type of stuff.
You mentioned pro days, which are the same thing as the combine, but just in your own home. So
right.
Why is it different?
Because you've got everybody coming in. You've got to be here, and here. If you have any kind of medical thing, then you can't meet with the team. It seems like you're doing too much in too little of a time, and you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. You know what I mean?
For millions of dollars?
Well,
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate to you because I think you're wrong, but that's why I'm pressing.
Are we really going to see all these 40 times really translate into on the field speed?
I think the 40 is overrated, but I think there's other, like the 3-cone and the 20-yard shuttle is relevant.
So let me jump in here.
The 3-cone that
yeah, Chewy, go ahead.
So I think what Ryan's trying to say, and I agree with him 100%, because after thinking a little bit, he hit the nail right on the head. These players are these young men coming out of college, coming into the NFL. They're taking time away from preparing their bodies for an 18-week season You know, a lot of these guys are playing 10, 12-week seasons in college. They have to then prepare for an 18-week season, but then they have these 3 or 4 months that they have to put that preparation on pause to prepare to go out there and run a 40 in shorts, run a 3-cone in shorts, do a vertical jump that doesn't mean anything, standing still, because that's not how you play football. Nobody gets in a stance, stand still, jump straight up in the air. I mean, that means nothing. So what they're doing is they're taking away from their preparation to actually play football. And then you get stupid stuff like the Wonderlic test that every year they say is not going to be leaked to the media. It always gets leaked to the media. It always hurts one kid's draft stock, and it's just ridiculous. What the NFL should do is they should take a page out of Major League Baseball, like your favorite sport, Randon, is instead of having the winter meetings, change this from a scouting combine to the spring meetings in football, a meeting of the minds where the teams can go in and discuss trades, they can go in and discuss rule changes, they can get the measurements of the prospects, and they can have interviews with the prospects. But then all the other workout stuff should be handled at the pro days. Every single prospect has a pro day. That should, in my opinion, that's what they should revamp the scouting combine to be, is more of a spring meeting for the teams and just a measurement check-in, so that way people all have the same measurements of the prospects.
And imagine all the content from all those pro days versus a couple of days of the combine. Go ahead,
Jonathan. What do you think?
So with the combine, you hit the nail on the head with as far as the medical checkup. That's what it's for. You have all the players in a controlled environment, all in the same city, going to the same doctors, to the same medical environment, and you're all getting checked by your team doctors, getting to put their hands on them in a controlled setting as far as all 255 guys. So it's a huge benefit to having them all there. With the testing itself, I know that it does seem kind of archaic, but football has been played for the last 50 some odd years, so you need something that's going to be a steady test of time for all these players. And the 40-yard dash, someone decided it was important one day, so they've all had to do it. And it's a good way to compare. Okay, well, that receiver 4 years ago that had pretty good success, he had this 40 time, he had this vertical, he had this 3-cone. These other athletes need to be in that same.
and do it with pads on. Sorry.
No. So these other athletes need to be at least in this range. Is the athlete that I'm looking for? Is he an outlier here, or is he an outlier there? You have a Jordan Davis, 6'6", 340, running a 4.78. That doesn't make sense. He's a missile at that point. He's 6'6", 340 pounds, and you ran the same 40 time that Jarvis Landry did as a Pro Bowl receiver. So when you have those outliers like that, the combine is a good thing because, like I say, it's a controlled environment. Everyone's in the same place. Everyone's doing the same drill with the same coaches, as opposed to maybe it's your pro day, you're more familiar with your coach, you have a faster track, you have faster turf. They said that I forget which school it was, but they said it was built on a downslope almost, where they run their 40s now, and all of a sudden they're all running 4.3s. So it's just a controlled environment. I agree.
But you kind of said it yourself there. Like, it doesn't make sense when offensive lineman or defensive lineman, I forget what he was, that ran the 4.8, runs the same time as
defensive tackle, from Georgia.
Defensive tackle, Pro Bowl NFL receiver.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's ridiculous. That doesn't translate on tape. He's not playing at that speed on tape. What really matters is, like Ryan mentioned, was the practices. There's no way that translates the same way, because it's different movements. You're doing it in a short amount of space.
But Chewy, they do the 10-yard split.
Do that with iPads.
Let me finish this thought. So,
Okay,
what Ryan said, the Senior Bowl, what makes the Senior Bowl such a good thing is these players are evaluated in practice, in one-on-one drills against another player in a controlled environment.
Agreed.
That is what they get much more out of. Whenever coaches are making decisions on who's going to play, it's not based off of the measurables. It's not based off of the 40 times. It's based off of in practice, in training camp. That's where the decisions are made on who's going to play and who's not going to play. And if we get more of that, it's better, and less of this kind of charade where we're just doing stuff to parade guys out there.
So I agree and disagree. I think the Senior Bowl is great because there's a lot of guys who are from small schools who get to demonstrate their talents against major universities. But I think the combine is useful because you have all these guys in one location. All the scouts can visit that kind of stuff. And then you have when the 40s, just blazing speed, great. 3-cone and this kind of stuff, great. I think bench press for any athlete is useless because like when you just fully doing this, like you're never just doing this ever, right? So like some of that stuff is useless. I agree with you guys, but for the most part, it's like where we get all these guys in one location do the same thing. It's great for only them because it's on ESPN. So from a guy from like Texas A&M Southern or San Antonio State or some no-name college who's never have a national televised game ever in their career to go to ESPN and be in the combine, that's good for them in their draft stock. And
have them run 7-on-7s, have them run 1-on-1 drills, have them do actual football.
If you want to change the combine and what the combine is, that's fine. But I think the fact that it's elevated to the fact of ESPN and everybody's watching it, that's beneficial for the guys in the smaller schools, and it's useful for those people. You have a lot of people who are running 4.2s, 4.3s, and that you've never even seen. I mean, we all love Crocker, who's a Niners analyst, and there's plenty of corners who he's never even seen who ran 4.3, and I think that's perfectly applicable to this discussion and saying that the combine is opening eyes to people who are just supremely athletic to a national audience, and that's what's good. Pro days don't do that all the time. You tell me that San Antonio State's going to get a pro day that it's going to be nationally televised? They're not.
I agree with that, but what I'm saying is yes, you should change the combine to where they're actually doing actual football stuff, 1-on-1 drills, 7-on-7, something like that. That way these guys are preparing to play football and they're getting longer preparation, and it's only going to help those young men be successful, avoid injury when it actually comes down time to play football, when the season starts later down the road. And I'll shut up.
Chewy, you're saying Chewy, I want to talk to you about this. So you're saying it was wide receiver and it was all offensive players to start in day one. But you would rather have quarterback, wide receiver, corner, right? You'd have some battle
one-on-ones, right? Some one-on-ones.
So they're not. It's not offense, defense. It's battles. So day 2 is offensive line, defensive line, like to where you're getting some battles one-on-one. Is that
and then
correct?
Linebackers, running backs.
That would be much more useful, and that way all these players are putting their time and preparation into actually being football players and being ready to play football instead of taking time away from their training for this charade going on now, and then they have to regroup after they're drafted. It's just not beneficial to the young men, in my opinion.
Jonathan, what do you think?
Once again, I agree with everything you're saying as far as some of the things are archaic, some of the things don't make sense. Like you say, a defensive lineman running 40 yards down the field doesn't make sense. But it's just that someone 40, 50 years ago decided that was important. So now you have to have this baseline of athlete.
Let's change it, man. That's what we're here for. Let's change it because it's not important, and we know it's not important.
But it's also, like I say, you're looking for this baseline of athlete that you're looking for, and then you find the outliers, and that's where the judgment of explosion comes from. And I 100% agree with you. I'm not.
So if your metrics are off, why would you want to keep using the same metrics just because you got 50 years of data points on them?
But metrics for offensive line in the 40-yard dash are extremely relevant, but they're not relevant in other positions. So look,
no. Metrics in the offensive line on the 10-yard,
No,
that's the one.
The fact the top 5.
In fact, you only need 3 steps as an offensive lineman to figure out how fast somebody is.
Border Sports, you're 100% wrong here. So in the top 5 40-yard
dashes,
dashes,
left tackle, bro.
You're not listening to me.
You need 3 steps.
The top 5 40-yard dashes for offensive line, 4 out of the 5 are Pro Bowls. 3 out of the 5 are all pros, including Staley, Trent Williams, all those kind of. The fact that they can run and they're athletic is proven that they can get and move in their position. It's 100% relevant for offensive line. So I'm saying you don't just abolish.
You'll find that some people are faster in the first 10 yards and it doesn't translate through all 40. That has no relevance on the whole 40. I'm telling you the first 10 yards and even less is what's more accurate.
You didn't listen.
As an offensive line grade.
4 out of 5 of the top ever in the history of the combine are all pros. So it's relevant.
Okay.
Anyway,
and I'm still saying that the metrics are off, right? So your metrics can hit metrics can hit 3 times on the best numbers, and you can go, oh yeah, but you can't see all those other good ones with those metrics.
They are all pros.
And you can't find all the other pros with those same metrics, can you?
There's no metric. There's no metric in the history of football.
Can you find all the old pros with one metric that you just pointed out? No.
No,
you found
can't.
3. You found 3.
No, I found 4 out of 5. But
you found 4 out of 5 people, but there's been a lot of all pros out there, hasn't there?
Ryan, you're not listening to me. I'm saying that it's still a relevant metric of what you're using to gauge an athlete.
Did you hear what I said though?
Yeah, I did say what you said.
When is an offensive lineman running 40 yards? Can somebody run faster in the first 10 yards than they can after 40?
Ryan, it's a gauge of their athleticism, and we're
right, but it's not the right metric that you need to be looking at.
Ryan, we're in a podcast here. We're going to agree to disagree in this aspect. Let's go to Jonathan, and let's wrap. Jonathan and Chewy will wrap up the combine here.
And just once again, like I say, it's just a measure of the athlete. They do take that 10-yard split really important, especially when it comes to defensive linemen and offensive linemen. Just like you're saying, that first 10 yards is so important to their explosive ability. The same thing with the vertical as well, too. So there are correlations in those athletes that are doing really well there, especially 3-cone with the agility. And then the offensive lineman running the screen plays, getting out in front of the running back, that's where that athletic ability is on display. Y'all got a really good one on the left. And at your left tackle there, that shows every play that he's one of the best athletes in the NFL as well too.
Did you see that run where he just totally pulled and knocked that guy in the next week? Like, I'm swearing, his mom had a stutter after that.
And I saw a pre-combine workout with him and Adrian Peterson where they both had the exact same 3-cone. So one of those other metrics right there that kind of showed that he was an outlier. So that's why I think the combine is important. But mainly the combine is a medical checkup, and that's what they're all there for. All the teams get together. They discuss possibly trading Russell Wilson at the combine. So you get all the scouts together, the GMs together, and it's an event now. And the NFL is making tons of money off of putting that at prime time. That's unfair to the kids that they have to get up late at night to run 40-yard dashes. But the NFL knows what they're doing. They're making a ton of money off of it, and they're making these guys a ton of money too. Who is John Ross since he ran that 4.22?
Right, exactly.
I didn't even know he was on the New York Giants.
Yeah, Chewy closes out, and then I'll ramble off all our Twitter feeds there.
Cool. So I'll close it out. It'll be short and sweet. You guys are all right. I mean, Ryan, you're right that the 10-yard split is more important than the 40-yard dash for certain positions. Randon, you're right that, 5 All-Pros or 4 out of 5 All-Pros were in the top 5 all time. That's a correct stat. You're stating fact. However, when we look at the history of, all pros, Ryan has a good point there as well, that not the history of all pros were in the top tier athlete that measured out at the combine. So you're both right. There's examples on both sides. But what I'm saying is to make it most effective is we need to change with the times. The NFL needs to evolve with the times. And just because something's been done one way for 40 years doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. Let's keep evolving. Let's keep seeing what can be better. And then maybe the combine can survive long term, and it can actually be more beneficial for everybody. So
we got next gen stats. We should be using that to its fullest. You know what I mean? There's things in there that we're just
I wrapped up, goddammit. That's it.
Oh, my bad.
I'm just kidding.
He was wrapping up. So this is 5 guys in a 6-pack. We're doing this. So the goal of this is that there's 5 of us. Each of us are going to be hosting this stuff. So please follow everybody. I'm going to go over the Twitter feeds here right now. So Chewy at Chewy_Alejandra. And his YouTube channel's in the notes. No Butter Sports at Ruina at Crypto Ryan 16. You have Eric at Bay Area Baller 18. And then our guest, Jonathan, thank you for coming on. You did a great job. I really appreciate you guys. F the Cowboys. No offense.
Strong takes though, man.
But strong takes. And
great job today.
And I'm sure he'll be a future guest on our show. Thank you all, everybody, and hope you have a great night. As always, for most of us, go Niners.